The Minutemen had started to rebuild for the first time in a long time. The blue faded flag stood tall, proud, above a very small, quiet corner of the Commonwealth. But it was theirs. It was the Minutemen's. And for the first time in a long time, they could say that. The fighting force of the Minutemen began to gather. It was small, but everything starts small. These men and women were ready to take on the fight to free the Commonwealth. Supplies rolled in from settlers who believed in the dream. Even power armour emerged. For the first time ever, the Minutemen had power armour. Things were really looking up. They gathered and waited at Sanctuary under orders from the general to rebuild brick by brick, wall by wall, and make this place safe. A new barracks was constructed. Built among the rubble of Sanctuary, it housed all the troops. It had beds, water, food, plumbing, everything they needed. It was a sign that the Minutemen and the old ways of the Commonwealth were starting to make a return. The general found himself in all of this, branding new Minutemen colours. He felt pride he'd never felt before. He walked the roads of the Commonwealth with a sense of pride on his back and helped everyone who asked for it. But his mission had not been lost. Finding Sean was still a priority, and he would not rest until father and son were reunited. With Virgil's plans in his hands and the knowledge of the Institute's teleportation, he felt confident. With the Corsa chip that he had taken, what he needed now was to find the railroad. If he could get this chip decoded, he'd be one step closer to finding his boy. Welcome back to Rebuilding the Commonwealth, everybody. Please enjoy. So welcome back, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that intro. I think I'll do some more cinematic intros, but we start our episode here at Old North Church. A very dark and creepy Old North Church, looking for the railroad so they can decode that Corsa chip we spoke about, so we can start the molecular level. No, this is the molecular level already. This is the first bit, and get ourselves to the Institute, which is going to be something we do in today's video. There's quite a lot going on in today's video. We're also going to take the castle as our next kind of step with the Minutemen, and we're going to decide if the Institute are our enemies or not, which I think you can probably guess what the answer to that's going to be. So just to say, that barracks you saw in the intro, there will be a separate video out on that as a tour and the building process and all of that, but we won't do it in this video today, but it will be coming out a couple of days after this one, just going through how we did it. So after clearing out all the ghouls in the tunnels, we got to the door to the railroad and entered the code, the secret code, which is railroad, and met with the leadership of the railroad to see if they could help us decode the Corsa chip. The railroad leadership met us with gunpoint, but it wasn't too much of a problem. We explained to Desdemona who we were and what we were there for. Deacon came out, vouched for us, told her who we were. She let us in and led us to Tinker Tom so he could decode the Corsa chip for us, and we could start the most boring part of Fallout 4, unfortunately, which is building the signal interceptor. So our next job was to build that and get inside the Institute. But before we did that, we had another job we needed to do. We needed to meet up with Preston and a small team that we'd sent from Sanctuary, because it was time for the Minutemen to retake the castle. This was a pivotal strategic point we needed to take. Not only was it right on the water, so it's easily defensible, it already had an armory, it was already an old Minuteman base, but most importantly, it had the radio tower, which meant with that in our control, we could spread our message to everyone in the Commonwealth instantly, all the time. If we could retake this radio tower and retake this castle, this would really solidify the Minutemen's position in the Commonwealth and show everyone, raiders, gunners, the Institute, the Brotherhood, that we mean business and we're back and we are not to be toiled with. So we set up a firing line just outside the castle walls and started to deal with the Mirelurks. Now, this wasn't the most difficult fight in the world. It was with the damage mod that we're using, the better locational damage, the Milex did go down pretty easy. However, the payoff to that was if one of them touched me, I went down pretty easy. So I had to keep my distance. We were using our MG42, which is a wicked mod, by the way. I'd highly recommend it. With the incendiary ammo on it, you can't go wrong. We moved through, cleared out the Milex. That guy didn't stand a chance. Dealt with the eggs, dealt with the little annoying hatchlings that you just can't get, and then it was time to deal with the Milex Queen, which I thought was going to be a lot harder, but once again, yeah, it went down quite quickly with the gun I was using. However, if that spray touched me, there's a clip that I didn't put in where I get absolutely domed by it. The second that spray touches me, it's game over for me immediately. But alas, the Milex Queen was down and the castle belonged to the Minutemen. Such a big step for Preston. He's so happy. Look at him. You can see the happy pixels on his face. So that was one of our big goals today, sorted. So it was time to move on to the relay to get into the Institute. So heading back to Sanctuary, we went and woke Sturgis up very rudely and handed in the plans that we got of Virgil on how to build the signal interceptor, and he gave us the list of things we needed to build the device, along with letting us know that we would need a lot of power to make this thing work, but we were resourceful enough. I think we could do it. A biometric scanner, a military grade circuit board, and a sensor module, which are all very hard things to find, but you can just buy them from a trader usually. Myrna will usually sell them, or Daisy in Good Neighbour, so if you can't be asked to go and find them, just buy them off a trader and you'll have everything you need to enter the Institute. Piece by piece we built the signal interceptor, the control console, the radar dish, the main bit and all the generators, and fired it up, and we finally had means to find out what happened to our son if Sturgis didn't fry us trying to get us there. But I had hope. We all have hope in Sturgis. I think he's a very underrated character. He's not annoying. Actually, no, he is annoying thinking about it. You know that bit where he comes up to you and he's like, "You willing to do some work?" That bit constantly. No, actually, I don't like Sturgis. I've changed my mind right then while recording this voice clip. So, yeah. But regardless of my now strong opinion on Sturgis, he got us there. We were finally inside the Institute, the boogeymen of the Commonwealth. All its secrets lay at our feet. First thing we did was put the holotape Sturgis gave us into the terminal to gather all the data, because it probably would be important in the future in case we did decide the Institute were our enemies. And once that was done, we were met by a voice over the intercom.
Hello. I wondered if you might make it here. You're quite resourceful. I'm known as Father. The Institute is under my guidance. I know why you're here. I'd like to discuss things with you face to face. Please, step into the elevator.
So we did as we were told, and we stepped into the elevator, and we were taken down and shown the Institute in all its glory. And then we finally met the one we'd been looking for, our boy, Sean.
Sean?
Huh? Yes, I'm Sean.
Sean? Oh my god. It's really
Who
you.
are you?
But all our excitement was shattered as we quickly realised that that little boy in front of us was a synth. The man from the intercom stood in front of us. Father was his name. Explained to us what the Institute was and who he was. And it turned out he who stood before us was Sean. He was our son. This old man was our son. Had that much time passed in the vault? 60 years had passed. Max couldn't really believe it at first, but after everything he'd seen in the Commonwealth, quite quickly he came around and truly realised that the man who stood before him was the boy who was taken from him all those years ago. So this is the big dun 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 moment of the game. We found out Sean was 60 years old. Oh God. Wasted. All that time looking for our boy, wasted. The little boy Kellogg had with him the synth. At least I think it was the synth. To, you know, send us on a track to get to the Institute. I think that was the point of it. But we'd gotten into the Institute and we discovered where our son was. So now, after having a little look about, there isn't much in the Institute I want on this playthrough. So we had a little look about and then left. And it was time to decide whether the Institute were our enemies or not. Max held a meeting with Preston, but in his own resolve probably realised, after looking at the fear that the Institute has created, the technology that they have and the things they have, and they won't share it with the people of the Commonwealth, their authoritarian grip over the Commonwealth, how could a faction like the Minutemen sustain when you've got something like the Institute? I don't think these two factions can coexist with each other, unfortunately. And I think for that reason, and we were all expecting it, the Minutemen would have to go to war with the Institute. The first enemy they were going to have to get rid of out of the Commonwealth was the Institute, because ultimately the Institute held chains on the Commonwealth, and the Minutemen, the whole point of the Minutemen is to break those chains. So, unfortunately for Sean, the Institute had to go. And Max kind of realised, you know what, when his baby was taken out of the vault, his son died in that moment. He doesn't know Sean, he doesn't know this old man. There's no connection here. His son perished along with his wife in that vault, and that was it. And that was a hard thing to reconcile with, but with that off his shoulders now, Max could move on with the Minutemen and really, really work with the Commonwealth and get rid of the Institute. So it was now time to head back and inform Preston of our decision.
I've made my choice. The Institute is now our enemy.
With my second in command informed, he can inform the rest of the troops and the rest of the Minutemen. But Preston did have some good news, as there was someone waiting for us at the castle, an old Minuteman by the name, everyone's favourite, the grumpy old witch that is Ronnie Shaw. Ronnie was an old Minuteman who served many years ago, who had heard some good things about us rebuilding and wanted to come back, so we couldn't really refuse experienced soldiers who wanted to do the right thing. But Ronnie, even though she did come with a bad attitude, did come with some good intel, which was that in the castle's armoury were schematics to build artillery. So we definitely needed that. So she took us down into the basement of the castle. We had to fight a few turrets, but we managed to get there. We also had to fight Sarge, an old sentry bot, but he went down easy enough. Headed into the old armoury, which was stocked, by the way, and found the schematics for the artillery. Went outside and built one of the cannons, rudely awoke a settler so they could be assigned to it, and tested it out, and watched as Minutemen fire rained down, delivering justice for all. We headed straight back to Preston, who'd already heard the news over the radio, and we revelled in how far the Minutemen had come since Max had stepped out the vault. We had retaken the castle, we'd started building a proper home base, a capital city in Sanctuary. We discovered how the Institute work. We'd made enemies of them, but everyone in the Commonwealth was enemies with the Institute, so we were no different to everybody else, but we had the means to take them on. We had gathered a small army. People knew us again. People knew the Minutemen again and trusted in the Minutemen again. We'd come a long way since episode 1. Lots have been done. We've established our name in the Commonwealth and started to rebuild hope and security. But just as me and Preston were starting to really revel in this, a strange man appeared on the road into Sanctuary. So, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you enjoyed the more cinematic approach I took to this one. I thought I'd try something a little bit new. You'll probably notice if you've watched the other videos that each video tends to not follow a structure, and I think that's just because these are my first videos. These are the first videos I've ever made, so I'm kind of just playing about and figuring out as I go. So each video might be a little bit different from the other at the start here, just while I find my feet a little bit and figure out exactly how it is I want to do things. But I hope you enjoyed today's video. The last video, Rebuilding the Commonwealth 3, I shouldn't have titled it that because it was more of a settlement build, so I won't do that again to avoid the confusion, because that was more of a settlement tour and a settlement, well, not a settlement but a build. But yeah, I think there was a bit of confusion there because that wasn't a whole episode like the ones we used to. That was more of just a tour and a building video. And the barracks, there will be a video for the barracks, separate video for the barracks I built with Sanctuary. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the cliffhanger at the end. But thank you very much for watching. As always, have a lovely rest of your day, evening, or wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Make sure it's great, and I'll see you in the next one.